What's the conclusion? What comes out? What's the maskana? What's the nafkamina? What's the difference in all that we've learned about the fact that any Baal Seichel understands that the tachlit, the point, is next world and not this world, and that the neshama, we're blessed with, that's higher than malachim, doesn't appreciate the things of this world? Where does that? What conclusion does that take us to? So, of course, the Mesilas Yesharim continues and explains. Let's see together. Vinay, achar she'adanu, after we know this, navin miyad, we'll immediately understand chomer hamitzvos, the severity, the importance, like chomer adavar, asher alinu v'yikar avoda, and how precious the avoda is, asher b'yadenu. Kind of like more a negative perspective and a positive perspective. Negative is a negative word. I don't mean negative, but more like a heavy perspective and an enlightening, inspirational perspective. Right? One understands how much responsibility they have on them. That's on the one hand, that's the gravitas is overwhelming, but it's also enlightening. Right? Wow, and engaged in such a great thing of playing in the World Series. Chomra mitzvahs kinei Elohim tzayim. These things are the planes, are the emtsoyim, are the means, hamivim osana l'shleimas hamiti, to the true shleimas, asher b'ladam lo yusag klal. Without it, we won't get it. Lasig means to acquire, to attain something. Lo yusag klal. So now I get it. I think one of the key words here is the word miyad, immediately. Meaning, there are times that one has a principle, an idea, a klal, if you will, and from that klal to this detail or to this action item is a few extra steps, and it's not so simple. Why does A equal B? Well, let me explain to you why. If you really understand A, you get to B. That's not what's going on over here. It's miyad. Navi miyad. We can immediately understand it. It's readily understood. It's a direct correlation. It comes right out, right? Because the next world is so shleimus, is what it's really all about. Connection to the Rosh, what it's really all about. This world is limited connection. The neshama doesn't feel the air, the oxygen. It's trapped in this world, like we discussed. Besides on Shabbos, and then the next world, it's alive. So, but we're in this world. So what? We're in this world to increase that experience. So now you understand immediately. Well, and how do we do that? It's through the mitzvahs, every single mitzvah. Vulam. However you do it, it's known. Ki eina tachlis magia, the end point, the tachlis, the goal comes about. Elami kibbutz, it's a very important idea here. Mikol kibbutz kolim tzayim, from bringing together like a kibbutz, like kabetz nidchei Yisrael. Kibbutz kolim tzayim, all the means, asher nimtzu, asher b'shu lagia, that are available, that are found, and are usable to get there. And according to one, it's the kibbutz of all of the means, and according to the strength of these means, and the usage of them, so too will be hatachlis nol comes out from them. Meaning to say that if one wants to get to an end point, it has to be that, well, there are a lot of means to get there. All the means have to be on all the pistons to get there, and I have to do all the things well to get to my ultimate tachlis. I'll give a mashal for this in a minute, but the principle I don't think is a typical principle. This is a wonderful line. Every simple deviation, hefresh katan, shimtzu b'emtsoim, tibachein toldato b'be'eruvadei. It'll be judgeable, valuable, like a b'china, tibachein toladato, its result, with absolute clarity, by Gizman Atachlis, Hanolad Mikibutz Kulam. Kamoshi Katabdi Vizebor, and that's clear. Meaning to say, let's speak it out outside, that the Tachlis comes about from all Emtsoim together. All the means together is what gets me to my end post. And any differentiation lacking, which is in one of the Emtsoim, will be felt in the end. It means you won't necessarily see it at Shat Maaseh. You won't necessarily notice it in the present, but when you'll get to the end point, you'll see that, hey, there's something lacking. Let's give a mashal from sports and from moon travel, a less traveled mashal in my world. Those who understand sports, and you can understand any sport like this, there are a lot of things you need to win, right? You have to practice a lot. You need a lot of stamina for most sports, right? As you get to the later stages of the game, later stages of the season, fatigue funds, and you need a lot of mental strength, right? A lot of sports is a mental game. Many people fall apart at the end when the pressure's on. You have to be able to use sometimes your left hand. You have to be able to use your right hand, right? You need good muscle tension, muscle tone, stamina. You need a lot of things, right? And each sport has its specific things. Sometimes a team sport, you have to make sure that all members of the team are working well. You could have an outstanding offensive player, but if your defense is weak, it's not going to work. That's a perfect example. So that would be when I say, like, how are we going to win? How are we going to be the most successful team? How are we going to be the one that gets to the Super Bowl, the World Cup, the World Series, whatever sport you're in? How are we going to get there? How are we going to do it? It has to be the kibbutz kol tzayim. All the tzayim have to be well, and for sure the good coaches and the good coaching teams and the general managers, etc., are working all the time, nonstop, that their team should be outstanding in every facet as much as possible, according to the salary caps and things like that. What about a moon launch? Imagine a situation like this. We haven't gotten to the moon for a long time, and I think it shows that it wasn't really such an important endeavor. But it was maybe 50 years ago the last time someone was on the moon. But let's talk about 1968, 69, till 73, 74, 75. And you're an engineer. They were working in Cape Canaveral or in Texas, Houston, wherever you were. And the astronauts are now, they've gone in the big, I think, Saturn rockets. A lot of interesting things about those Saturn rockets, because the Saturn rockets were really, what I understand, were rooted in the V2 rockets of the Germans. And there was, I think this is documented, it's not conspiracy theory stuff. Those rockets were a lot built on German Nazi technology, which is kind of sobering. And it was known, and the Americans needed these people. Okay, we're not getting into that part now, just something about. Anyway, so you had these massive Saturn rockets, humongous rockets, that shot the astronauts into space, and then they fell away into the sea, right? That's how it was done as such. I guess they made sure there were no, maybe they burned up in the atmosphere, I don't know, or they made sure there were no boats beneath, I don't know. And then the rocket continues. Now, at least how you worked in the Apollo ones was there were 3 astronauts in the original landing, right? The Eagle has landed. One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Was that it? Neil Armstrong's wondrous prose. And so you had one astronaut in a vessel above, who was circling above, and he didn't land. He wasn't so good to get to the moon. And then you had the 2, Neil Armstrong, one other fellow that went below. And the moon has a lot less gravity than the Earth, but it does have gravity. I think it's a sixth of the Earth. That means it's a good way to go on a diet, right? Because if you weigh 200 pounds on Earth, you're going to feel a lot less than that on the moon. So it's a good diet system. You can feel that, I don't know, 35 pounds or so, and on the moon, right? So then you jump and you feel all light. Great, right? You can imagine that chilling, Motzi Shabbos. You're on the moon. Don't worry about it. Have another bowl of chilling. You feel great. Okay, good. Now, here's the point, friends. You need a certain amount of fuel to get off the Earth, the moon's surface, to get back to the more mothership, and then the mothership is going to have to jettison you back to the Earth, and you have to all this planned out. Now, watch this. A person says like this, you know what, we need now, obviously, you can't pack more than you need either, because you want to take the minimum amount you need to safely get off the moon, because you can't take extra, right? You're talking about a 186,000 mile journey or something like that, right? So imagine, you see that they're having problems. Neil Armstrong is stuck on the moon. His wife is going crazy. His mother's calling you. You're running Cape Canaveral. It's a mess. And you turn to the engineer who's in charge of it. He's like, hey, wait. How much liquid oxygen, nitrogen, or whatever did you put into the thing? I said, I don't remember. Was it like 35 cubic meters? Was it 32? I figured 35, 32, whatever. It's Hamish. Say it more. Yeah. You look at him with utter shock. Do you understand that their people's lives depend on that calculation? So whatever, what's Arba shekels beini ubein chameni. If it's a 35 cubic meters, is it 32? And you just can't believe it. And here he is, this engineer, trained in the best universities, The best of the best, brightest of the brightest, the cream of American talent. That's a hefresh katan. You say, but look, and then he turns to you and says, but look, everything else worked out well in the flight. Like, what's the big deal? You say to him, because the tachlis is that not that they got onto the moon. We want to get them back to their families in America. That wasn't just to send people to the moon and have them turn into Dorito chips on the moon. We wanted to get them back. Oh, I didn't know it was such a big deal. Now let's say another thing. This is really interesting. The atmosphere has a certain stuff to it. We don't imagine like that. Now, if the ship goes too chazak in, it's going to burn up because it'll be too fast. Oh, so just let it ease in. But watch this. If it goes on too small an angle, right? Let's say like a 5% angle, 6% angle. So then it would skip on the atmosphere like a rock skips on the surface of a lake, and it would end up in Mars or something, right? It would have beaten Elon to Mars, but they wouldn't have been alive by the time they got there, right? So you had to get it just right. So imagine you're the engineer or the physicist who's sitting on that calculation, and you say, I was thinking whatever, 23 degrees, 22 degrees, it's all good, Vus is the big. Why is everybody making a big deal to me? Like get it so exact, and you see that it taka skips, and they're out there headed towards like Icarus, heading to the sun to get burned up, and you're responsible. The president's on the phone, and they want to know like what's up, what did you do? And you turn to the engineer. He says, whatever. I was tired that day. I didn't really pay attention to the calculations. And again, because here's the point: the tachlis. Every hefresh katan, every small hefresh. And these are small calculations these geniuses did. It's small calculations between 22 degrees and 21 degrees. And as I said, this much cubic nitrogen, I'm making up the terms, right? That much, it's a hefresh katan. Right, it's a hefresh katan. But it's going to make a difference in the tachlis, whether they're going to get home or not, back to their families' loving arms, or whether they're going to be stuck in space. So I think those are extra shalom. And that's really the point of what mitzvahs are also. And obviously I'm trying to mechazik myself also here, right? That it's all of the mitzvahs together. Let's at least talk about the big three things, right? Torah, avodah, gemilas chasadim. A person has to recognize, for me to reach shleimus, I need these. I have to have a strong achizah, a strong basis in these things. My Torah has to be strong. As much time as I have to learn. If it's 45 minutes a day, if it's an hour, if it's 2 hours, if it's 3 hours, if it's teaching. But my Torah is so important. My avodah, davening. I can't ignore davening. I'll just be a Torah person, not a davening person. And my chesed. I'm interacting with people all the time. There's a whole world of chesed a person can develop. A whole world of chesed a person can do through his mouth. You don't have a lot of time. Give people good feeling. People sometimes so cheap, right? Why are we so cheap with a good word? We know what a good word does for us. We can do that for others. We're cheap. Why are you cheap? It doesn't cost anything. And sometimes people are very effervescent, a flow of good words when it comes to people outside their families, when it comes to their spouses, to their children. They're cheap. Why are we so cheap? Why? Yeah, I'm talking to myself. Why? Give a good word to people. Give a good feeling. Give haldi, right? So those are three areas, but those are keep it time. At the end of times, right? A person's going to, in this world, we see the difference in all those things and we recognize them. Torah, avodah, gemilas chasadim. But it's like that every mitzvah, right? I have my tefillin, my tzitzis, my kashrus, lashon hara, dibur, v'chuli, inyani kedusha. Every topic is gathering, just like the sports star needs all those things. He needs the stamina, and he needs the skills, and he needs to be able to play the offense and defense. And the moon launch needs all these different chachmas going into it. Right, the right metals and the right combustion materials and the right astronauts and the right stamina and the right training, crazy training these guys went through, picking the right pilots, etc. And we have to do all those things. That's what it's about. Let's finish the paragraph, friends. Al inyan mitzvah, the diktuk, the exactness that we do in mitzvahs, it has to be very, very exacting. Like what? Like those who weigh gold or precious gems. Because it's so chashuv. I sold some gold recently, some of my old jewelry together. I had to take it from my wife. We sold it together, of course. You're going to say, like, listen, 15 ounces, 12 ounces, 14 karat, 18 karat. What's the difference? You consider it 18 karat. No, he's not going to do that. It's 14 carats, man. And then he said to me, you know what? It's 14 carats. Let's consider it 10 carats. No, I'm not going to do that, man. It's 14 carats. Give me money for 14 carats. And how much is it? It's 3.2 ounces, right? 2.2 ounces. It's not full gold. It's platinum gold. That's a person counts those out. 3 pearls, 1 pearl. Yalla. He told us some no lettuce b'shleimus amiti. Because what all these mitzvahs are going to get to, because what this mitzvah is going to get me, right? And here's the point, friends. Certain mitzvahs we see, right? I was talking about chesed before. When we see chesed, we see the result. I gave someone a smile. I gave someone a good word. I lit them up. Right? When we learn, we see it less. And we daven, I think we see it. Davening, I think people sense it more than learning. But I have to have a knowledge. Ezo chacham roas hanolad. The wise person is roas hanolad. I know the nolad. I know that I believe this farm, and I believe every mitzvah is creative and doing something, even if I don't understand exactly how. I don't know why learning this toast is harder and davening with a little extra oomph makes a difference in the next world, but it does. And every little mitzvah, every little working on my midas, every little step that I take, every bracha I make with kavanah is going to make a difference. Not just in this world for sure. Building my midas and all the things that mitzvahs do, and building an Am Hashem and Mikad Hashem Shemaim, Gavaldig. But I'm also creating the world, the next world. Now, I want to finish this section with an important statement. And I think people make a large mistake there. So please listen carefully here. That how machmir a person is a big discussion, right? Should a person be into chumras, not into chumras? I don't consider myself personally someone who's too into chumras, right? But I think sometimes people make an incredibly bad mistake, which is that, I'm not into chumras. But then they translate that as I'm not into diktuk adin. Chumrah is a chumrah, right? Not drinking outside of a sukkah is a chumrah. But making sure that you don't eat more mizonos than you're allowed to outside of a chumrah, sukkah, is maker adin. Making sure you're making the proper kavan, brach on something. Say, I'll make shahakal on everything. That's not a chumrah not to do that. That's not the prescribed way that any serious posuk would tell you to act. Do my clothes cover this or that? There are halachas about these things. That's diktuk, right? Oh, my tefillin, did it have to be a square, not a square? I'm not so, I'm light. What's the difference? A square, not a square? I'm not a machmir. That's not a machmir. We spoke, let's say, Moshe Feinstein say it wasn't a machmir. David Feinstein, his great Benoz Atzal, wasn't a machmir. Do you think they weren't medaktik and mitzvahs? You think it was just light to them? Azay, like this, like that. You diktuk, you think they didn't know this Mesilas Yesharim? And you think they didn't understand the principles of Mesilas Yesharim? Moshe, they say a story that Moshe was at a convention or something, and he was walking, and someone was davening, and people were waiting for him, and he couldn't go in front of him. He said it was like a wall to him. I don't know if he said that, or people who saw it said about him. There's a wall in front of me. That's a wall. What does Chomer mean? If there's a few sheets like this or like that, the basic Shulchan Aruch comes out L'kula, and there are other being machmir. That's where there's room to be makel, and not to, but just say, I picked it up. It looked like an esrog. It's a lemon, man. It's a harkava. It's not kosher. Oh, it looks so nice. It's beautiful. My tzitzis are afraid. By this, that's diktuk. That's diktuk. Kashrus. Oh, whatever. All the. It's all politics. It's not all politics. Is there politics in money kashrus? Of course. Is it all politics? Definitely not. Or different hechsherim of different standards? Yes. Do people have different standards? For sure. Is there room for different standards? Of course. But you're being medactic in it, you're serious about it, and you're checking it and making sure it's good, or you're relying on someone who does check it, right? And not all of us have the time to check out everything themselves, but we rely on people who are responsible, not just say, well, it looks like a K, it looks like if I was running Kashrus organization, I would probably write something like that. You don't even know what hechsher is, you don't even know who that person is, you don't recognize the name. Is that a diktuk? Shiduktuk? Kishok lezav? And Baruch Hashem, there's so many ways to figure out the halacha in a good way. Even if for sure, it's great that things like Kav Halacha, which very responsible poskim. I'm only including things I know. I'm not excluding anything. They're excellent chats. I know my yeshiva, we have a wonderful chat to know that around poskim, someone has a personal relationship with a postik, even better. But that's diktuk, shiduktuk. And of course, benam l'chavero. What dikdukim we need in benam l'chavero? That was one of the main things that Rabbi Yisrael Salanter taught the world. That just like you use your mind for dikdukim and sukkah and lulav and tefillin and tzitzis and tefillah, I have to be medaktik benam l'chavero also. Is this going to offend someone? Is not going to offend someone? As a Rebbe, when am I allowed to be tough on someone? Am I not allowed to be tough? You're allowed to stand up a Talmud, definitely. But what's the boundary to that? You're allowed to just smear him, right? In Europe, it was different. In Europe, they used to say, in Europe, they were very, very tough. But that was how they spoke then. I don't think it was offensive. I think it was a big compliment. I read recently that Lazer Gordon, the great founder of the Telz Yeshiva, came to Slobodka on his way to visit Reb Chaim Ozer Godzinski, and hundreds of Talmidim converged on his hotel. So he said, no, time to say a shir. And there's a short little fellow who's, asking questions on him. And he said, you're babbling like a fool, something like that. And everybody realized then that what they were thinking all that time, Aaron Sisilovich, that was from Iron Color, it was very short. They realized how great he was. If he got such a compliment from the great Telz Rosh Yeshiva, it meant that he saw that this fellow was going to be someone. That's exactly how they say the story over, right? So that was okay. That was mutter then. Is that how we speak today? You have to be medaktik. All these things, dikdukim. Take an area where you feel the dikduk and realize that that's how it's supposed to be in all areas of your Yiddishkeit. Everybody relates to something. I'm really serious about this. Why? Just like that, that's how we have to be best Hashem in all areas. And that's what the Mesilas Yesharim, that's the message of the Mesilas Yesharim here. Dikduk shidukduk, it has to be a dikduk atzum, and not in one area of Yiddishkeit, in all areas of Yiddishkeit. Of course, it takes time to grow and to develop and things like that, but that's our goal point, not to be light Jews in any area of Yiddishkeit. We're happy, we're simchadik, we don't have to be machmirim, but that we're medaktik, that we're specific, that we want to do it right, because not because we're pedantic, because we recognize how important this is and how vital and essential every little mitzvah is for getting us to our ultimate tachlis. B'ezras Hashem, we'll all get there.